Hi, and welcome to Managing Construction Risk. My name is Nicole Matthews, and I'll be available to assist with most technical issues that may arise. If you experience a technical problem, please send a message through the Q&A box, or you can send an email to nmathews@fsame.org. Lastly, you can call WebEx directly at 1-866-779-3239. Thank you again for today's participation, and I will now turn it over to Rad Delaney, our moderator.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm Rad Delaney, the Vice Chair for Professional Education Programs for the FSAME Architectural Practice Committee, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I hope you find this information valuable to you and to your organization. Besides today's program, the Architectural Practice Committee also offers 1-hour AIA CEU presentations associated with our quarterly calls. These calls are open to all and are free of charge. The next Architectural Practice Committee full conference call is tentatively scheduled for Friday, March 3rd, 2017, from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. We will be having a Designing with the Masters series featuring J.J. Tang, who worked with Helmut Jahn, and Pamela Sams, FIA, who worked with Michael Graves. You can go to the APC website for more information, where call-in information can be found in the latest newsletter. On behalf of FSAME and the Architectural Practice Committee, welcome to our webinar entitled Managing Construction Risk. Today's presenters will be Louis A. DiGeronimo, AIA, and Suzanne DiGeronimo, FAIA, FSAME of DiGeronimo Architects. They will provide new insights into the context of design and construction conflicts and ideas on corrective actions that can be taken to mitigate them. I'm looking forward to today's presentation and your questions and commentary afterwards. I encourage each of you to send in your questions as they arise during the presentation. Please type your questions in the Q&A chat box and submit to all panelists. We will answer as many questions as time allows. Following our presentation, Nicole will send each attendee a link to a presentation and the slides, as well as a form which you'll need to fill out to receive AIA certification. Also, after our program, you'll be automatically routed to a survey page. Please participate in this short survey so that we can address your concerns for future webinars. I'll have closing remarks for you at the end of our program, but at this time, I'll pass the call on to Suzanne DiGeronimo. Suzanne, thank you for presenting. It's all yours.
Well, thank you, Rad. This is Suzanne DiGeronimo. Lou and I have an informative webinar for you today. Our goal is to impart hands-on, hard-won knowledge that we've earned in our 45 career of private practice. Our hope is that this empowers you, first, to face the risks involved in architecture, engineering, and construction, and then, just by that act, secondly, to create solutions to prevent and to mitigate. We'll be using case study examples today. We've named 3 of the projects with the owner's consent, but we've done that just so that you have a bit of reality and context. However, most, if not all, of the other examples we use, we won't be able to disclose any individual groups or agencies involved. And so with that, we're going to start, and Lou is going to get this. There you go. So Lou, take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. The webinar is designed specifically with architects in mind. As Suzanne mentioned, you know, it's based upon our plus 45 years in business. As you can see from my resume, I'm also a licensed private detective. So there is investigative overtones that we've been involved with regard to construction and you know, construction impropriety. And this applies in this particular case. It applies not only to contractors but also to architects. Construction, as the slide indicates, there's no construction that's risk-free. You know, you need to manage it. and you cannot ignore it. I think an important part of what we're going to be talking about with regard to architects is that despite what we're told in school, we are not perfect, and we are infallible. We are not infallible, I'm sorry, but we can make mistakes. We're allowed to make mistakes, and we will be talking about making mistakes and the possibility of curing those mistakes, how to avoid the risks as we move through the construction process. If we come upon those risks, how to mitigate those risks to benefit the owner, the public, and ourselves.
Want to do the case study?
Oh, and so as an example, the case study is where we're providing advice to a banking institute, and we were providing in this service we were providing oversight to the construction process, where we were reviewing the loans that the bank was financing, and we find out that the bank doesn't have any idea of what the process is in terms of the normal things that we would take for granted, like certificates of insurance for the contractor, certificates of payment for the contractor, instead of something written on the back of an envelope, or I want a third down, now and a third down later without any descriptions. The point here is that in dealing with any of the projects, regardless of whether it's an administrative process, as in this particular matter, we were not the design architects; we were the administrating architects for the bank. You apply all the rules that would necessarily that we were taught in terms of how to administrate a project, and you do not assume that the client, in this particular case, a well-known Northeastern bank, was unaware of the normal processes and the applications that are available, to us. Of course, a lot of this, all these forms are readily available in AIA or in our own, or in your own database. Identifying and preventing activities associated with a departure of standard of care. Standard of care is an important term, and that term is regulated by law in terms of defining what a professional is, professional standards are. And that is that professional standards represent the conduct of a professional taken given in the same scope and responsibilities, an acceptable course of professional conduct, which means that if there is a standard procedure, an acceptable procedure, and in design, in administration, in the development of construction documents, that has been accepted by the profession, and it has been, and there's enough documents to depict that. We need to stay within that criteria. That criteria provides us with the safeguards of professional standard of care. Departure of codes is a departure of standard of care. We're required to administrate and understand these codes. We shouldn't be, if we have never done a school, and you're going to do that by yourself without looking for assistance. That's a departure of standard of care. Just because you think you're going to be able to do that school, that doesn't. And you're going to the likelihood is that you're not going to be equipped to do and understand all of the aspects of a project without the necessary experience that comes with doing that kind of project. So the idea of partnering and sucking in a little bit of pride and saying it's okay, I can take advice from somebody else is perfectly okay. It's acceptable. It's okay, and you're gonna hear me repeat this throughout this presentation. It's okay to say I made a mistake. It's okay to say I made a mistake, but this is how to cure it. So, the example we're going to use today it's a municipal building which we were engaged to do. A portion of the building when we were brought into this project, it was kind of simple. The roof continued to leak. Every time it snowed or every time it rained, we'd fix the roof and it continued to. We were not the architects of record. Another architect was hired to do this portion. After significant amounts of repeated visits to the building, we suggested that we do an evaluation. We were hired then to do an evaluation of the building, only to find out that the structure was inadequate and that the building was moving at an accelerated rate. And every time we corrected the roof, the structure moved, ripping the roofing material and causing the leak. So the result of that led to a full investigation, which caused the building to be condemned. We actually wound up taking the building down and rebuilding it because the architect felt that he was capable of designing the structure. He also designed the mechanical, the electrical, etc., on a major institutional building, and as a result, it was, in our experience, a major catastrophe in terms of professional input and a major departure of standard of care. Identifying preventing activities associated with the departure of standard of care. There's a typo here. UK is US, but these are just some standards of law and legislation that talks about reasonable care, skill, and what we are supplying to the consumer. So under the Goods and Services Act or the Uniform Construction Code or the Uniform Commercial Code, we are providers of a product, and that product, if it fails, just elaborates on the departure of care and actually reaches into higher levels of civil discipline. A quote, I'm going to, which is not a part of the slide. Quote from the Model Civil Jury Charge. This is when you really don't want to be there, and when you hear it from the guy in the little black cape that sits behind his big wooden desk, right? He says, architects represent that they have and will use the degree of knowledge, skill, judgment, and taste ordinarily possessed and used by the average architect in the profession. Further, the conduct of an architect must be measured by standard practice in the same or similar communities at the time the architect was performing their service. Thus, architects have the duty to have and to use that degree of judgment, knowledge, skill, and taste which architects of ordinary ability possess and exercise in the same similar communities at the time that they perform the service. Now, this is what I point out. This is a jury charge. This is what the judge charges the jury in a case that would involve a licensed professional, in this case, an architect.
This is the case study that you have.
And the case study is the final payment to a contract for a construction project, where where you need to certify the contractor's payments of debts, all the liens to be removed, the money's processed and spent during the course of the construction, the amount of monies that are drawn down. The list of items which I'm going through right now have to do with the responsibilities of the architect in closing out the project to ensure that the monies that were paid out to the contractor went to their proper designation, the subcontractor, the suppliers, etc.
What happened to that architect who who was disengaged from the owner and then came back at the end of the job? That's another one.
We're going to talk about that later.
Okay, so next.
Yes. Construction project risks. This is, safety, management, time, scope, procedure, contractors and subcontractors, management of people, information management, external influences, and building supplies. Right? The construction, the area that is certainly most vulnerable is doing it during the construction project. Although we as architects do not hold that level of responsibility in terms of life safety, in terms of curing that life safety, it is the contractor's responsibility. If we are present at the job site and we see departures of safety care, we are responsible for identifying those and requiring the contractor to cure those issues. The absence of that, we then become part of the risk of any eventual issue that may arrive at this. Now, any time that we are aware, we as architects are aware of a process, and we feel that that process is not being processed correctly, we have the right, we have the responsibility, and under our license have the jurisdiction to administrate that through the direction of identifying that to the contractor, subcontractor, owner, manager, etc. Now, because we do not have the ability to cure that situation as we are standing there on the project, the mechanisms that we do have are payment. We can adjust payment to the contractor. We can stop the project. We can bring in other agencies. These are all things that are made available to us. We certainly have to look at those conditions as in a business format to assure that we are not harming our client or harming the project, so that when these conditions occur, it is proper to discuss this with our client. And there are situations which we've experienced that the pluses and minuses of the situation where there was a life safety issue that was involved, and we brought this to the attention to our client. he agreed that we needed to stop the job. And we stopped the job so that we were able to address the issue, correct it, and proceeded to so depending on the magnitude of the issue, it warrants different approaches. In most cases, a hands-on directive discussion with the contractor, construction manager usually cures the problem. Contract risk, materials outside the specifications, the quantities not installed, change orders, front-end loading, bonding issues, services not provided, insurance is not purchased, unauthorized subcontractors and site issues. Again, it goes back to the administrative part, looking at this, understanding how the process working. We are there, not only in the, again, we're talking about, we haven't talked about bricks and mortar here. We haven't talked about whether the contractor put in his masonry reinforcing or he put on the right amount of coats of paint. We're talking about high-risk areas, of potential suit, potential damage, potential harm that can be both to the building, to the project's fiduciary position or the project's safety position. The example we're using that I have here is that we were engaged to take over a correctional facility after the contractor defaulted, where we through the bonding company we had to embrace all the subcontractors and materials suppliers, finding out that one of the subcontractors was actually supplying materials. It was the kitchen equipment contractor, and it's kind of more funny than it is. It's both serious and funny because the project was so huge that the contractor was delivering all this equipment, and as he was delivering the equipment, it was being delivered through the facility, going through the front door, and again, it's a huge facility, going through the front door and out the back door because he had another truck parked there, and he kept on rotating, and because he didn't bring the correct amount of equipment, so they were recording the equipment twice. So at the end of the day, he had a piece of paper that said he brought in 15 pots or 4 stoves or whatever it was. I mean, obviously, it was a amateurish attempt to disguise what the guy was doing, but it was looking at services, materials, checking on what was happening, conduct of the contractor. That in this particular case was not acceptable. Red flags. The declaration of authority is unclear. Contract suppliers are poor, weak change orders, termination languages, missing exhibits, substandard formats, the effect of management teams, incomplete reconciliations, disorganized work site. This probably applies to most of your projects. The example that we have is almost like a comedy, but it's a harsh learning experience. It was a large pharmaceutical firm engaged an architect to design a multi-million-dollar renovation to their manufacturing facility. This architect, completed the documents. This large pharmaceutical engaged a construction management firm. The construction management firm was headed by another architect to oversee the construction. There's conflict right there. We need to learn, how to get along with each other. Well, in the process of the construction, the architect, construction manager, pushed out the original architect and took over. And as a result of it, put himself in the position as the, quote, completing architect, where the original architect kind of stood by the side with his hands in his pockets, trying to figure out what's happening to me. The end result turned out to be a major catastrophe because the construction management firm / architect did a very poor job of administrating this, caused a myriad of delays, numerous change orders that turned out to be unnecessary, and as a result, the client got engaged in a litigation with the contractors, and brought in both architects, to reach recovery. The result of this, which was litigated, received settlements from both the original architect and the architect and the second architect who was acting as a construction management, in an amount of close to 75% of the alleged loss that was being claimed by the contract. Now we get into a specific project. The Longcrier, a Texas construction company that went bankrupt in Texas a lot of years ago. We were hired by Fireman's Fund to deal with these issues. Longcrier had a bond from Fireman's to do this. This particular case was where the contractor had hired an architect, and in so many ways that we know of, had the architect developed the drawings, had the drawings approved, received the building permits, and then discharged the architect based upon the fact that he had completed his architectural services and was no longer needed during the construction period. Contractor, in this case Longcrier, proceeded to build a building, build these high-rise buildings, and in a manner that was not depicted by the contract documents that were prepared by the original architect. The architect, unbeknownst to the fact that his drawings were not followed, and upon completion of the project, the Longcrier organization went back to the architect and rehired the architect to do the final inspection. Meanwhile, the building had been closed in, all the finishes had been completed. The architect accepted the commission, was paid a minuscule amount of money to do the closeout, and the closeout was completed with his signature on all of the appropriate documents. Now, 3 months later, after this was completed, the building, which was a thin-skinned masonry building, the masonry walls started to fall into the parking lot. It wasn't just bricks. that just fell into the parking lot. Panels, the sizes of 10 by 20, 25, by 10, were actually lifting and falling into the parking lot. We got involved in it through the bonding company, only to find out that the contractor departed from the contract documents of the original architect by using light gauge metal studs instead of structural gauge metal studs for the backup material that could not take the load of the brick veneer, and as resulting in, thank goodness, no one was hurt, but an incredible amount of property damage. And of course, the whole building, all these buildings had to be removed, demolished down to the framework structure, restructured, new interior, new exterior, and it is, to the best of my knowledge, still on. But the architect, because he signed off on this project, was part of the lawsuit, and actually it was a devastating effect to him because his liability insurance did not cover the extent of the damage that was here, and it was truly an incredible disaster for this guy. Note being, the enticement to go back and for the purposes of winning, the adherence of a client after the buildings are up is not a good idea. And signing off things that you're not aware of, again, is not a good idea.
All right, I'm going to interject here because Longcrier has one of my favorite stories in it. And we can say it because Longcrier is long since bankrupt. So the Longcrier Construction Company, Lewis was on the job, a couple of sites in Texas, and the owner of Longcrier, would pull up in a Rolls Royce, but he was bankrupt and unable to perform on these performance bonds. So Lewis had hired some ex-FBI officers, some ex-police officers. He was hired to watch the construction while it was completed in the interest of the bonding company, the surety. So he was doing that, and these diligent FBI officers and policemen were noticing that they were throwing away files. And so at the end of the day, everybody left. They went into the garbage, and they picked out files, and they found a thing. Maybe they thought that Longcrier had stolen, had stowed away $13 million in a bank account in the Caymans, right?
Yes.
In the Caymans. So Lou found an old obscure law called the Miranda Act law that you could go into the Caymans if you knew how the pattern, if you knew that it was so many steps up the bank and where, in fact, was the safe deposit box. Anyway, so Lou went down with his FBI and his police officer staff, and they went into the Caymans, and they knew where the safe deposit box was, so that they were able to get into there, and they found, in fact, the cash that was stowed away in the Caymans. What this did was it overturned the bankruptcy. So Longcrier was no longer, in fact, bankrupt, and it kind of saved the insurance company from proceeding, right? Did I get that right, Lou?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That's the Tappan Zee Bridge, which is currently under construction. It's a beautiful bridge that crosses the Hudson River at a very wide point. This is kind of a fluky issue because we were engaged by the Tappan Zee Bridge construction group to administer the buildings, the construction buildings, all of the buildings that were used for the contractor to fabricate equipment, house vehicles, maintain vehicles, etc. While we were engaged, the construction company, in their eagerness to move forward, decided that they were going to, while we were planning this, started construction on these projects, and only to hit a brick wall, literally, when the code official for the Turnpike Authority, the Thruway Authority, stopped the work and said, guys, you need a building permit for this stuff. So here we were now in the process of administrating an action that was caused by the contractor, angered the code official, and now we had to do and overcome all the non-compliance issues that was created by the contractor. Keeping in mind that while we were meeting with the contractors in different locations, this was all happening by a whole other group that was doing this. So the point of this illustration here is that you never know what can happen on a construction project in terms of an overzealous contractor, proceeding without the formal approvals, an owner proceeding with the building without going through zoning and zoning regulations. Again, another example, not in terms of departure of standard of care, but in terms of due diligence on the part of our profession.
Well, on this particular assignment, what happened was the building code official got angry, and all Tappan Zee constructors wanted to do was to build a shelter so that when their workers needed to do a little minor repairs on some of the major, huge vehicles that were used to construct the landside operations of the Tappan Zee Bridge, that they would have some shelter from the snow and the rain, little open-air building, and they were actually using discarded storage containers, shipping containers, to do it. But the building official got very, very angry, and so in small steps, 14 times he rejected their application for a building permit. And every time he did that, he just added one more thing that Lou would say, yeah, but if he adds this, you're going to need to enclose the walls. And yeah, but if he adds this, then you're going to need to have a toilet. Yeah, but if he adds this, you're going to have adequate exiting. And then you're going to have an HVAC system. So it ended up to be what was going to initially be, if he had gotten his permits, just a shelter, open-air shelter. It ended up to be a full-blown building with a toilet.
Toilets, everything. Heating, ventilating,
all for that.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to the next. This was the Build It Back project. I'm going to breeze over this because it's an issue from a lot of perspectives in terms of architects' input. What happens when you're engaged as an architect in a project, and you have and your job is the charge of the architect is to do a specific task. You can't avoid starting to look at the program in terms of overspending, poor administration, lack of quality personnel, inadequate construction management, failure to coordinate AE designs, and poor auditing trails. I mean, I think the point here is that, so what do you do? What does the architect do to make sure that he does not depart from the accepted standard of care. Well, you make the observations, you see what's going on, you report what's going on, and make sure that it is, you record this in probably in the most politically sensitive way that you can. But the result of these recording of this goes to the due diligence of the architect, who in this particular case is not the administrating architect, he's not the manager, he's really an implementer of the contract documents that are necessary to apply to the building code official to get a building permit. However, he is part of the process. So, yes, using this example, when we as architects see this process going on, we have one of two things we could do, maybe three, possibly four. One of them is get out and find another job, or proceed with caution and record the observations and episodes as best you can, and report them to the administrative people.
We're getting there. Trying to change the slide. Very good.
This is another example of two architects. There's a church in New Jersey hired a local architect, did a very nice job of designing the church for this parish, and it was a very elaborate church. It was a nice design, and it had some really nice finishes. It was stone and limestone, and a very, very fine traditional piece of architecture. Well, it was over budget, so the church, through its own investigation, found a company, a design-build company, out of state that offered to be able to do this for considerably less money, doing it in prefabricated panels, as opposed to the way that the original architect designed, and hired this design-build company. And the design-build company engaged an architect to perform the architectural work. Architect A, the original architect, was hired by the church to continue to look over the project as their overseeing architect, and he had all of the administrative duties that would come with the architect for the owner. The second architect, who was the construction architect, designed the project for construction, received the building permit, and proceeded to, his partner, in this case the contractor, proceeded with building the building, only to find that the drawings that were prepared by the construction management contract did not speak to or provide any means of getting the water off the roof. Now, this is hard to believe, I know, but that's now the administrating architect, who was responsible for reviewing the drawings, he missed it, and the reason he missed it was because he was ticked off. They didn't hire me as the architect. They went to this other guy, and they didn't use my design. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. So he was mistreated. He felt he was mistreated and did a very, very poor job of administrating this. Anyway, the outcome of this, which I just pointed out, there was no means, there was no way of getting water off this roof, a high-pitched roof that went into an internal gutter, and there was a couple of little outlets that were there, and I think the only reason they put them there was probably that during construction they had water and they needed to get it off the roof. But in any case, the resulting consequences of this design created a major disaster inside. The building wasn't even completed, and they were subjected to somewhere near $2.5 million worth of damage inside the building. Anyway, the cause and effect of this, similar to the other project, was that both the architect, the contractor, and the original architect were found at fault and all contributed to the cure and the damages. You know, the case in this instance is, you know, if you're an architect, act like an architect. If you're there, if your job is to provide architectural services to a client, regardless of what those architectural services are, you have a responsibility to provide those. You know, despite what might have happened, or that you know, there are personal issues or design issues that come up. In this particular case, somebody taking, you know, your design and running with it. You still have an obligation. The architect still has an obligation. Now, keep in mind that the first architect had the same obligation as the second architect, but more so because he was the original architect and acted directly for the client. The second guy, he just screwed up. I mean, what a major disaster. To this day, I can't fathom how the guy was able to design this huge church without proper roofing. It has since been cured, and all of the damage of the interior and exterior have been corrected.
Okay. We have two more examples for you.
Okay. One of my favorites. It was a religious community that had engaged an architect to do a major addition to a retirement home. You might say that the architectural firm was a major player in our architectural arena, and he presented himself as a specialist in the care of residents, and in this particular case, it was the care for residents that specialized in Alzheimer's and dementia. The architect had to do an addition to an existing retirement home for the elderly in this religious order, and so the three-story building that they had all they needed to do was match it up, you know, match the floor heights up, and they came up with a very interesting design, very nice design that was accessible or that looked good, and the demise of the design and the problem with it only came out after the construction took place. What had happened was during the design they gave it to a junior designer who decided to not use the floor levels that existed on the existing retirement home, but to match the floor levels of a beautiful little 2.5-story stone building that was in the front of the building, which was going to be used as the reception administrative portion of this facility. Well, obviously maybe not to you, but obviously to the outside, the floor levels between, you know, a residential building and a commercial building are different. You know, one was 8'6", and the other one was 10 feet. So lining up the first floor to meet the administrative, this small little building and administrative floor, meant that there were a series of ramps that had to take place throughout this new addition. And what I look at in terms of the shortcomings, it's kind of funny, was you had a person that was there, an elderly woman with Alzheimer's, coming out of their room to a 3-foot platform and a 30-foot ramp. And this was throughout the project. It went through a series of construction issues and was finally resolved with a minor, minor modification to the building, but the modification cost I think it was $1.5 million and change to resolve because they were able to catch it in time. The architect was found responsible for this, had to pay for the repair, and a major departure of standard of care. And in this particular case, the example here is that the thought process during the design period of a major project was totally overlooked by the senior people within that organization, and they were overcome by the aesthetic quality of the building, not paying attention to the fact that none of the floor levels lined up.
One more example, and then we'll sum up.
Okay, this is an example of a planning process in a multi-phase residential project. The owner developed, engaged an architect in a multi-phase residential complex. The architect provided both architectural and planning services to assist the owner-developer throughout the process. Part of the architect's responsibility was to administrate construction and to monitor the project's process in 3 phases. While the project's process proceeded into phase 2, it was stopped by the municipality, causing significant hardship to the owner-developer and the contractor. The cause that was determined was that though the planning board had approved the project, it placed a contingency on the development by stipulating that phase 2 of the project could not start until phase 1 received a temporary certificate of occupancy, which it had not. Because the architect knew of the contingency and was personally involved as a planner on the municipal planning board during the approval process, the architect should have advised the owner and the developer before approving the second phase of the result. The end result is that the court awarded claims for damages and delays in favor of the owner-developer that were borne by the architect.
We're just going to summarize now.
And our last one to summarize it.
Well, understanding the steps, you have all of the parties have to understand the goals of the project. We've had a lot of experience in our 45 years, and we found that architects on a number of occasions just don't want to admit the fact that there is something wrong with what it is that they've done. And if they could just do that, they could participate in the mitigation of it. So unfortunately, in a lot of the court cases, we've seen architects stubbornly dig in and decide that they're not going to, in fact, assist, that they are right and can't be made to get off that particular point. So I think our emphasis to you is that construction is a hand-built process. The drawings are still a hand-built process. And although we have FSAME and other kinds of computer-aided things, construction is still a hand-built process. And it's okay to have issues and to have things go wrong. And actually, that's what being in construction is all about and why we all love being architects. So, but to say that this is something maybe you see it, maybe somebody else sees it, but to say, yes, this is something that's happened, and I've come up with a solution for it, though, here it is. And I think that if you do that, you'll be able to get by a lot of issues that, in fact, come up. Is there anything else you want to say, Lou, before we, so we can take it over to questions, Rad, if you'd like?
Absolutely, Lou. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap up, or maybe we can wrap up after questions?
Oh, we'll wrap up after questions.
Okay. All right, we do have some questions that have come in, and I'll read them off, and Lou and Suzanne, you can take it from there. First one is, what can we as public architects, those are architects working within a federal agency or within a private AE firm, do to protect ourselves? In other words, we're working in a firm that's is doing the work. What do we have to do to protect ourselves?
That we're a private AE firm working for a federal agency.
Private, well, yes.
All right. No, the easiest answer is do your job. Working for federal agencies is a lot. I might say is a lot easier because you're usually working hand in hand with another professional who understands the conditions of construction and design, and would allow the opportunity for the private AE firm to correct the mistake, because unless it's a egregious mistake, which normally it's very rare that it happens. It usually can be worked out. We've found that public agencies are very good to work with in many regards, particularly with the fact that we all understand, because we're working with professionals, that we're not perfect.
Okay.
Next. Hello.
You described a number of sort of disaster scenarios in some of your examples. How can you understand them, and how do you best assess the risks of a particular construction project?
Meet the contractor. Look at the job. First of all, be involved with the discussion with the contractor and/or developer, or the guy that's putting this together, and understand whether that group, person, or understands what they're about to build. If you're not comfortable with that process, then it would raise a caution flag.
Yes, but a lot of times, Lou, architects don't necessarily have the construction administration and the field services part of it, and so it becomes difficult for an architect to get involved in construction.
Well, let me say, if you're completely divorced from the process, the construction process, then there's nothing you can do. Other than to volunteer your time to go see the project and document if you're that concerned with the fact that you might have a bad contractor, and which you have the legal right to do. Just because you're not engaged in the process, no one can stop you. You are the administrator of that project. In fact, you can stop the work at any particular point in time if you feel that it is at risk, because you are the sole signature of that project in order for it to get the building permit. Now, given the fact that I'm using an extreme condition that's here, and by the way, in our experience, I have exercised that right several times. You know, you need to use sound judgment and address those issues. But again, going back to the fact that if you're engaged in the process, then there are signs that in terms of the contractor's the contractor's capability, the way that he presents himself, the way he does construction, the appearance of the construction project. You know, if it's shoddy, if it's dirty, if it's not clean, it's not tidy. I mean, these are all signs that indicate that there's a problem in the construction process, and these are all little flags that go up. If you're not involved in the construction process and you feel that there might be some risks that are there, go out and see it, you know, and make sure that it's being done correctly.
Okay, what happens if a contractor's subcontractors start assessing liens to the project?
Well, you have a heart-to-heart with the contractor. You have the legal right to the owner, and most contractors have the legal right to take over the contract if there are liens asserted on the project. You need to have the contractor remove those liens because that is a priority in terms of the contractor getting paid. He has to submit a release of liens. So, which means that there may be liens that are on the project, but you need to get a third party, in this case the general contractor, to subordinate those liens to make sure that that there's no harm that comes back to your client, the owner, on the project, and the project can be closed out without these asserted liens.
If a contract is ended under a terminating for convenience clause, what kind of costs can you recover?
Normally, anticipated profit. Well, first of all, any monies that are due under the contract, and it is we've found that what is due to the design firm is any anticipated profit that could have come to him as a result of the continuation of the project. You have a contract. You formulate the program of the contract. You prepare your staffing for that contract. You put together all of the costs and overhead to administrate that contract, and for reasons that are out of your control, you know, the client terminates the contract. Well, you're anticipated to some rewards that the court recognizes.
Okay. Is there any difference in the responsibilities and liabilities that an architect has in a design build contract as opposed from a design bid build contract?
Yes. The design build architect is subject to where that needs to have an incredible amount of trust with the contractor that he's partnered with. Usually in a design build contract, there's a limited engagement on the part of the architect after he completes his drawings. That needs to be fortified. That the architect who accepts that kind of contract needs to make sure that there is a continuing oversight, or at least yeah, well, just say continuing oversight, not necessarily day to day, but at least understanding that he's engaged in the oversight of the construction, so that he can see that his liability is being, the liability issues are not going to be coming up.
It's also important to understand that in a design-build contract, the architect works for the contractor, and the architect, therefore, is supposed to be helping the contractor make as much money as the contractor can. The design-build contract itself should be looked at by any agency as to its appropriateness, because most of the time you're looking at the federal agencies, you're looking for state-by-state agencies. They're looking for a quality product for the use of public funds. And in that particular situation where you need to have a lot of attention to detail, the design build process is a better one.
Yeah, there is a rather unique issue that comes up legally, and that is under a design build program, the architect, as Suzanne points out, the client is the owner is not the architect's client. His allegiance is to the contractor. The contractor is paying him. There are instances where the owner pays him, and when when that happens, there is it becomes a little more complicated. But what further complicates the issue is that if the contractor, who is part of the design build process, screws up, the courts look at the architect as having a responsibility to the owner. So that goes back to what I said before, that you need to be able to trust the contractor implicitly, because if something does happen to cause a legal issue, the courts are going to find that regardless of the contract, his license is for the protection of the public, and the public is what is now housed in the building, which that is owned by the owner, who's not his client.
So even in a situation where the architect is working for the contractor, the courts can take a situation created by the contractor and hold the architect liable. Did I understand that correctly?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, yes. So but remember, they're really kind of really simple things that we as architects keep on forgetting. And the most important thing to remember is that we sign those drawings. It's our name. The contractor's name is not on there. The owner of the building is on there only for reference, and the address only so that it gets its mail. But the liability rests on the signature line and the license that goes with that. We are the guys that are responsible for that. And if we don't step up to the plate and start exercising that right, we're going to get into more and more trouble. To do that, we can't take a position of, well, that's means, methods, and procedures, and a contractor can take care of it. It doesn't work. Buildings are designed the same way that they always have been. Buildings are built in the same way they always have been. They start at the bottom and they end at the top. When someone figures out that we can put the roof on first, then we got a whole other way of doing business. But the primary thought that I would hope everyone leaves with is that we as architects have a responsibility to the public and to our profession, and that is to uphold those rules and regulations and command the respect and responsibility that is given to us. And sometimes we do have to go out on a limb, and don't be afraid of it. You got to, if that is something that you think you need to do, don't be afraid of it. The other point here, and I mentioned it before, I'm going to say it again: we're not perfect. regardless of how we were taught in school, you know, that we're great, we're the greatest designers in the world, you know, we make mistakes, and we make a lot of mistakes. You know, what we have to learn to be able to do is to say, I made a mistake, how can I solve it? And once we're able to do once we say, how can I solve it, we have mitigated the problem, and the courts view the mitigation as an acceptable procedure under professional conduct.
In the case you mentioned very early in your presentation about the structure not being designed properly and there was excessive movement and the waterproofing didn't work, you said that building actually had to be taken down to the ground. Who paid for that?
The owner paid for the removal of the building, and the owner paid for the reconstruction of the building, and the architect was sued, and the architect paid for all of that.
The architect liability insurance.
Architect's liability insurance paid for all of it. It was a hands down, you know, it was one of those, you know, geez, you're not going to, you know, when someone says you're not going to lose this one, we didn't. It was, and what helped was that the architect was the most arrogant individual that you would ever meet. I mean, he did not admit that he could have made a mistake.
Yeah, but it wasn't just the roof. It was a lot of issues. For example, the column in the center of one of the columns, when you went into the crawl space, the column didn't attach to the foundation, so it was off like by a foot, so that there was no way that the column was in fact bearing. So it was the roof and a lot of other issues that caused the decision to, it was impossible to repair all of the issues. But the origin of the situation was that the architect decided to do the structural engineering himself because he could do it. And that, therefore, most of the issues were revolving around the construction with the structural aspects of that.
I mean, well, you know, we as architects are trained to do structural. We as architects understand electrical and mechanical, you know, to a limited degree. But our knowledge is based upon our understanding of those disciplines. In today's market, it would be extremely foolish, other than for a single-family house or some minor structural design of a flinch beam or a beam over a window, that an architect should engage in any kind of departure from architecture. But you know, it's his knowledge, it's his training that gives him the ability to be able to speak with an electrical engineer and understand how things work, as well as a structural engineer. But you know, going any further, you know, starts, you know, that places that individual in a departure of care. You know, I mean, unless the architect can prove that he has a structural background or a mechanical, electrical background, he's stepping on very sacred ground if something goes wrong, because he's going to have a very difficult time at trying to convince a bunch of homeowners, you know, some regular folk that are sitting in that little box, that you know, he's qualified to do all that stuff.
And you just mentioned standard of care. It seems like there isn't a very clear definition of standard and care, but it's to restate that definition. Is it just what the average professional would do? Exactly what another architect, given the same set of circumstance in the same given period of time, would have done. And I mean, that's, and you can kind of, you know, if you wanted to question that, you could take a situation and pool, you know, a poll of questions in a, you know, with 2 or 3 architects in a room, and without disclosing what the issue is, and you'll find that there is a consistency.
in how we think, how architects think.
So if an architect is brought into a court situation, you need to defend yourself, you would be going to other architects and ask them, in this situation, your lawyer would, in this situation, what would you do? And so therefore you would get 2 or 3 opinions, and if all of the opinions are in fact what you did, then you have a defense. The other aspect is if you're on a project and there are several architects that are in fact working on the same project, it would behoove you to talk to the other architects who are also assigned on the project and in fact pool your knowledge and come up with standards and standard details for that one project that you're working against, if that situation would ever arise, for example.
Okay, well that may be a good way to wrap it up today, since we've gone through all of the submitted questions. Lou or Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up your part of it before I close things?
Be yourself. Know who you are. Be assertive where you need to be assertive, and protect yourself. And I think don't be afraid to say I'm sorry, and then solve the problem.
Okay, great.
Thank
you.
Thanks, guys.
I'd like to thank Suzanne and Lou for all their hard work developing this presentation. On behalf of FSAME, I want to express our appreciation to you and everyone who participated today. We hope our webinar has been valuable. I'd also suggest that you visit the FSAME website, specifically the Committees and Council page, which will allow you to drill down to the Architectural Practice Committee pages. I'd like to remind you about the survey. We really want to hear about how we did today. And thank you. This concludes our webinar. You may now disconnect. Please enjoy the rest of your day.